Hello everybody, welcome back to Invisible UX. I know it's been a little while since the last video, but I promise to do these more often in the new year. So with today's video, it's something that I've really been looking forward to. I'm going to give a portfolio review for Andrew Bennett. Andrew Bennett has recently completed his user experience program. So we'll take some time and look at his stuff. Before we dive into it, I think it's important to say, as we review these, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a different design aesthetic. I'll be giving my opinion, but there's no right or wrong answer, really. I hope that anybody watching this video finds the review helpful. If there's any questions about what I've reviewed or any comments that I've kind of feedback that I've given, throw them in the comments and I'll do my best to reply to them. All right, now let's get to it. All right, so let's get into it. So we've got Andrew Bennett's landing page. The first thing I notice when I get to this page is his name, bright, big, bold, all caps, underline, can't miss it, and then UX designer. So we really know what he's interested in, what his career is, what kind of role he's looking for. You also see his image. He's smiling. That's great. It's great to show character, a little bit of personality. So the next thing I notice is this dynamic text. I think this has an potential to be overused, but when used appropriately, it can do a great job of bringing the user's eye to an important part of your page. Now, the only thing I would suggest is the dynamic portion is a little bit low res compared to the static text. So I would want to go in there and fine tune it, give it some higher resolution so it matches. So the next thing I notice before the text below is the image of the computer and the mobile device. So at first I'm wondering, okay, why am I looking at these? But you can fairly quickly see the pattern here. So there's a Figma icon, Photoshop, as well as InVision. So he's clearly trying to convey that these are my programs or digital tools that I'm more comfortable with, that I've used. And I'm also comfortable in designing for web as well as mobile. So I think that's a clever way to do it. I might use some different imagery. The images, me being picky, but the images look a little bit cartoony. If that's the theme for the site, I think that's fine. It would just be my personal preference to use something a little bit more refined, maybe like an icon. But I think it does the trick in conveying what it needs to convey. Next, I'm looking at the upper right top menu. So we've got the home page, which is where we've landed. We've got About, we've got LinkedIn, and we've got Contacts. Home is grayed out, indicating that that's the page we're on. The other menu options are white. So what I would do here is I would invert that color scheme. I would make the active page white. It's bold. It's saying this is where you are. And the inactive pages, this gray. And then when you hover over the inactive pages, I would make them white to indicate that they're clickable. So finally, under the design to impact with purpose, etc., we have Andrew's intro statement, which is fantastic. It's short, it's concise, but it gets the point across. He says, hello, I'm Andrew, a UX designer based in Spokane, Washington. Very quick and to the point. And a bit of a mission statement or an objective. I help companies bridge the gap between technical concepts and user-friendly experiences. Great. Through user research and user-centered prototypes. Okay. So I think the first part of that statement is great. You're bridging technical and user-friendly. That's fantastic. That's a challenge in our field, and if you can do that, that's going to help you to stand out. Now, the second part, through user research, good, and user-centered prototypes. Prototypes are one tool of many to convey or to ultimately get to an ideal design solution. You have rapid prototyping, you have hand sketching, you have user testing, multivariate testing, A/B testing, journaling, and then all the way through to wireframes, prototypes, and then high fidelity mockups. So instead of saying user-centered prototypes, I would say user-centered design. User-centered design is the umbrella under which all of those other items fall. prototypes, wireframes, testing, etc. It can be an overused statement. You see it in a lot of portfolios, but it's also what recruiters are looking for. So I think it would be a good modification. So this is great. Once we've seen home, now we go ahead and click to about. The first thing I notice here is this large image of a beautiful scene, beautiful hike, beautiful trail. I'm actually kind of jealous of it because it's 30 degrees where I am in the middle of December in New York City. So I'd love to be there right now. The image is another image of Andrew, which is great. It helps to convey, a little bit about who he is. I don't know if it's necessary to have someone with you or necessary to be alone. That's really a personal preference, but something to consider when you're thinking about who's looking at your portfolio site. So next to the image, we have an About Me section. Good chunk of text. It's a little bit small. I would suggest, because the About Me is why the recruiter or the user is at your site, making it a little bit bigger and switching places with the image. The image is great, but it's not the main point. So I'd put the About Me on the left, switch the image to the right, shrink the image a little bit, pump up the text size, make it, 2-3 points bigger to really stand out. So digging into the About Me statement, Andrew talks about his former career as an electrical engineering technician, and talks about how he enjoys solving problems and, his attention to detail. The first thing I'm thinking of as a recruiter is, this is great. This guy has technical capabilities and he's probably going to be able to manage conversations with very technical teams of developers and engineers. Andrew goes on to talk about some of his frustrations with his former career, talking about how he wished that engineers could communicate a little better with other people, with people outside their teams. This is great as well. This is something that's very important to user experience design. And if this is something Andrew wants to focus on, then I'm interested as a recruiter. So after the About Me statement, he has a Download Resume button. That's great. I tend to, almost overuse the Download Resume, and I would suggest putting it above the narrative as well. So it'd be About Me, Download Resume, text, and then another Download Resume button just to make it very easy for the recruiter to access your information. This is one of the main reasons they're on your site, so you want to make it very easy. So an interesting thing that I noticed the first time I took a look at Andrew's site is I thought this was the extent of the About Me, but you scroll and it continues and it continues. So I think this is great that Andrew's demonstrating his interests outside of user experience, especially with VR. That's something that's very relevant to UX. He goes on to talk about his interest in audio engineering. This is great, but you really don't have a lot of time for visitors to your site, especially recruiters, to spend on your About Me. So I would suggest really making this a lot more concise. Go ahead and talk about the virtual reality, talk about the audio engineering, but focus on the background. This is really good stuff coming from an engineering background. Anything you can leverage from your background or previous experience as an asset that will benefit an employer is really important to focus on. So what I would suggest, keep the entire About Me to this amount of text. Really put it on a diet, distill it, and just have really one section that's mostly above the fold here. So smaller image of the beautiful scene here on the right, on the right, text on the left, bump up the text a little bit, and then get rid of all this stuff. Choose one image, and I think that image of Andrew is the best bet. So if we try the Download Resume, great, we're taken to the resume. All I want to do is make sure the link works. So that's fantastic. So on to the next section, LinkedIn. It works, great. Similar with the resume, I just want to focus on the portfolio site. I just wanted to check to make sure the link works. It does. Okay, great. And now for the contact. The contact section takes you to a form. Um, Personally, I think this is a little impersonal. I prefer just to include my name, email address, and if you're comfortable, phone number. It's already on the resume that visitors to your site have access to. Maybe it's even on your LinkedIn. So I don't really know if it's a matter of privacy, but it certainly does make it easier for a recruiter to reach out to you, especially if your email address has a link that opens their email app, or if your phone number has a link, if they're on their phone viewing it on mobile, click your phone number, now they're calling you. Just try to make it as easy as possible. So also we have a bottom menu for when we're scrolling through larger sections like the About. They can easily go to a different section of the site. The only thing I would add, especially for the longer sections, is a back to top. I mean, it really doesn't take a lot of effort to scroll back up, but it's just a matter of a little bit of convenience. Okay, so at this point, when I first took a look at the site, I thought this is great. There's some tweaks that we could make, but I wondered where the projects were, and it wasn't until I went back to home that even though the button, it's right there, and I read the text just above it, I honestly didn't notice it the first time I came to this page. So there's two suggestions I have. One is more of a Band-Aid easy fix, and the other's a little bit more intensive, but it'll result in a better thought out site. So the quicker fix would be to put a little space between the button and the text above. As a starter, I would have a gap that's just as big as this gap right here between the two bodies of text. So move it down a little bit and then center it within that text as well, so it stands out even more. Also bump up the size, maybe about 50%. Don't be shy, make it prominent. That's your link to the projects. So that'd be a quick fix. The better fix that's a little more time intensive would be to actually add a projects option in the menu bar up here. Keep the button below. That way the recruiter has the option of seeing it there, but also seeing it when they're first looking at the menu items. The reason this is really important, even critical, is a lot of recruiters only have maybe a minute, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, to review your portfolio and see if you're a good fit for the role they're trying to fill. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to find what you're looking for. So a projects link up here, boom, link it to the same anchor that this button goes to, projects. It's going to make it incredibly easy. If a recruiter is frustrated, they can't find your projects within 5 or 10 seconds, they may not even look at them. So what I would suggest is keep the home, that's great. Invert the colors like we were talking about before. Add an option for projects after home, then go about, then LinkedIn, then contact. Another option, which I think is a little bit better, is getting rid of contact altogether. So you have home, projects, about. As we talked about, switch the image to the right, text to the left, bump up the text, get everything into this much or this big of a section, distill everything below. So you have text, image, and then below that you have your contact. So you could do, if you kept the contact link, you could have an anchor, which takes you down below to where your contact information is. That's almost too many items for the top menu though. Now you're approaching cognitive overload. So I'd really suggest just having home projects about LinkedIn, and then allowing your visitors to find that contact below. I could go either way. Adding the contact or keeping it up here so you have 5 items goes back to what I was just saying about making it very easy for the recruiter to find your information. So take your pick. So there it is. I hope you found that review helpful. Leave any questions, remarks in the comments. If you'd like to see your portfolio site reviewed, let me know. If you have any other questions about UX in general or things you'd like to see in future videos, let me know. Until then, take care.